Before I start the story, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribers, and remember, at 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. Dr. Ilara Mystery adjusted her microscope, her eyes tracing the familiar dance of genetic sequences across the screen. A respected geneticist known for her relentless pursuit of truth, Ilara had dedicated her life to understanding the complexities of human DNA. Yet the string of nucleotides flickering before her now suggested something that veered towards the impossible. It was well past midnight in the lab, the kind of deep night that turns a silence into a presence of its own. Her colleagues had long since departed, the glow of their workstations faded, leaving only the relentless hum of the supercomputers and the occasional beep of machines to keep her company. But fatigue was a triviality when pitted against the thrill of a discovery, and what she had stumbled upon promised to be revolutionary. The sequence she had isolated didn't match any known variant. It was as if the very blueprint of human genetics had hidden a compartment, undetected, unobserved until now. Ilara zoomed in on the anomaly, her fingers dancing across the keyboard to cross-reference the sequence with every database available to her. But each query returned the same result: no match found. Her mind raced with the implications. Could this be a new mutation? A glitch in her equipment? Her scientific rigor wouldn't allow her to leap to conclusions, but the patterns were too consistent, too deliberate to be a mere error. The sequence bore an architecture of intention, a coded message written in a language of life she had never seen. In the shadowy stillness of the lab, a shiver ran down her spine. This was not merely a scientific anomaly. It was a cipher that beckoned, hinting at a story woven into the very fabric of human existence. It suggested a history far different from what textbooks and fossils had led them to believe. Compelled by a mix of trepidation and exhilaration, Ilara initiated a deeper analysis. She engaged the lab's AI, a powerful system designed for pattern recognition in genomic data, to parse the sequence through layers of bioinformatics algorithms. If this was a message, she would decode it. Hours melded into one another as Ilara worked, her world reduced to the glowing data on her screens. When dawn finally broke, it found her still there, surrounded by a fortress of empty coffee cups, the code on her screen gradually yielding its secrets. It was a discovery of monumental proportions, yet Ilara knew that this was only the beginning. The real work, the unraveling of this genetic enigma, lay ahead, and with it the unraveling of what it meant to be human. As the first slivers of morning light crept through the blinds, painting the lab in soft amber hues, Ilara leaned back in her chair, a profound sense of destiny settling over her. She was about to step onto an uncharted path that would change everything. The next few days were a blur for Ilara. She had always been respected in her field, but now she was at the center of a whirlwind. Her publication on the anomalous DNA sequence had gone viral within the academic community. It was not just the geneticists and biologists debating fervently. The news had sparked a wildfire of speculation across multiple disciplines from anthropology to astrobiology. Yet the fervor of the scientific community paled in comparison to the attention Ilara received from an unexpected quarter. It arrived as a cryptic message in her encrypted professional email, an invitation to a meeting with an organization calling themselves the Sentinels. Skepticism was her immediate reaction. This sounded more like the plot of a science fiction novel than the serious discourse she was accustomed to. But the part of the message that captured her attention referenced data she hadn't shared with anyone. Details about the alien code that were not in her publication. This was information that could only be known by someone who had accessed her private research files, or perhaps by someone who already knew about the code. Intrigued and cautious, Ilara agreed to meet at a location provided in the message. A nondescript cafe tucked away on a quiet street, the kind of place one would never look twice at. The man who greeted her there was a stranger, his age hard to determine, his features forgettable, but his eyes were sharp, holding a weight of knowledge that suggested he was more than a mere academic. He introduced himself as Agent Rowan and wasted no time on pleasantries. The Sentinels, he explained, were an organization that had been established in the shadows, one that watched over humanity and protected secrets that were not yet ready to be revealed. The alien code in the human DNA was one such secret. It was not a new mutation or a mistake. It was an inheritance, an embedded message from a time when humanity was in its infancy. from a race that had seeded the stars with life. Ilara's mind raced. This was a claim that toppled the pillars of human understanding, a narrative that belonged in the domain of myth and legend, not in the stark reality of her lab. Yet the evidence sat unyieldingly before her, in the form of her own research, and now in the earnestness of Agent Rowan's revelations. The Sentinels, Rowan continued, had been aware of her work long before she published. They had been observing her, ensuring that the knowledge she possessed did not fall into the wrong hands. But now, with her findings public, they needed her more than ever. The time had come, it seemed, for the world to know the truth, or at least a version of it that they could comprehend without descending into chaos. Ilara was a scientist, and her instinct was to question, to demand proof. But she also understood the magnitude of what was at stake. The code was not just a message, it was a key that could unlock human potential and change the trajectory of the species forever. As they spoke, the world outside the cafe continued unabated, unaware that within its walls the course of human history was being quietly redrawn. Ilara realized that her role in this was no longer just as a discoverer, but as a custodian of a legacy that bridged the cosmic expanse. She had to ensure this knowledge was ushered into the light, in a way that enlightened rather than destroyed. The meeting concluded with a new alliance formed, one that would see Ilara working closely with the Sentinels. They provided her with data, tools, and resources beyond what she had at the university. The task ahead was daunting, yet the possibility it presented was more exhilarating than anything she had ever imagined. The code had to be deciphered fully, and its secrets laid bare. For better or for worse, Ilara mystery had become the linchpin in humanity's next leap into the unknown. Ilara returned to her lab, the clandestine meeting with Agent Rowan leaving her mind teeming with possibilities and dread. As she sat down at her workstation, the Sentinel's parting words echoed in her ears. "The code is a gift and a burden, Dr. Mystery. What comes next is on your shoulders." The gravity of the task was not lost on her. It was one thing to challenge academic paradigms, but to challenge the narrative of human history was to shoulder a weight that could crush or redefine humanity's view of itself. The lab now felt like a crucible where the elements of an old world were being melted down to forge something entirely new. With the Sentinel's advanced tools at her disposal, Ilara began the meticulous process of decrypting the code. The software was unlike anything she had used before, intuitive and seemingly predictive, enhancing her own capabilities. She worked with a zeal fueled by the urgency of her mission, but progress was slow, the alien code resisting her every attempt to unravel it. Then, after countless hours of trial and error, the breakthrough came. A combination of biochemical markers and sequencers interacted with the alien code in a way that caused it to unfold like an intricate bloom. It wasn't just a message or a set of instructions. It was a map of genetic potential, of pathways and evolutionary roads not taken, or perhaps not taken yet. The decryption revealed a history of humanity that was not solitary but interconnected with a tapestry of life spanning the cosmos. The code bore traces of genetic markers that mirrored those found in the most distant of celestial bodies, suggesting that the origins of life on Earth were far from terrestrial. Ilara was astounded by the implications. The code hinted at a legacy of knowledge and advancement that was bequeathed by an alien civilization long before humans had even conceived of the wheel. It was as if humanity had been left a treasure map by a progenitor race, waiting for the day when their descendants were ready to reclaim their heritage. But Ilara knew that this revelation came with monumental risks. The societal impact, the collapse of long-held beliefs, and the potential for this knowledge to be weaponized were dangers as real as the promise of advancement. She needed to tread carefully. The narrative of human origins was about to be rewritten, and Ilara felt the weight of history pressing down upon her. Yet alongside it surged a current of hope. This was a chance for humanity to step beyond its infancy, to reach maturity as a species with a place among the stars. It was a monumental discovery, and she couldn't bear the burden alone. She needed to assemble a team, one that could help her navigate the treacherous waters ahead. It would require the finest minds, unyielding integrity, and a shared vision for a future that embraced the truth, no matter how alien it was. The lab was quiet, the hum of the machinery a gentle backdrop to the cacophony of thoughts racing through Ilara's mind. She was about to make her first call, to a colleague she trusted implicitly. The dawn of a new era in human evolution was on the horizon, and Ilara Mystery was its reluctant harbinger. As Ilara assembled her team, she chose individuals not only for their expertise, but for their ability to accept and adapt to paradigm-shifting revelations. She reached out to Dr. Rajan Desai, a neuroscientist with an interest in the evolutionary basis of cognition, and Dr. Lena Kovalenko, a synthetic biologist renowned for her work in gene editing. Together with her own expertise in genomics, they formed the nucleus of a group that could interpret the alien code from multiple angles. The team gathered in the secure confines of a Sentinel-supplied laboratory, a place more akin to a bunker than an academic setting. Here, among the sterile clank of metal and the soft glow of biohazard lamps, they set to work, their focus absolute. The atmosphere was one of controlled excitement. Each member understood the extraordinary nature of the project. They were not just researchers, but pioneers standing at the threshold of a new frontier. Under Ilara's lead, they began to decipher the code's practical applications. The data suggested enhancements to human physiology that defied current understanding: disease resistance, adaptation to extreme environments, and perhaps most astonishingly, the potential to catalyze latent cognitive abilities. The human genome was like a grand piano, and they had just discovered an entirely new octave. Each revelation brought with it a profound sense of responsibility. The code didn't just offer a glimpse into what humans could become, it presented serious ethical questions. The potential to redefine life came with the shadow of eugenics, of a society divided by genetic have and have-nots. Ilara reminded her team daily that they were not just scientists, but guardians of a power that had to be introduced to the world with caution. Days turned into weeks, and the project became their world. They operated under the vigilant gaze of the Sentinels, who made it clear that while the scientific pursuit was to be unhindered, the dissemination of the knowledge was to be controlled. But a growing unease festered in Ilara's mind. Knowledge was power, but who decided who wielded it, and how? Then, as they were on the cusp of fully mapping the code's potential, the first sign of trouble appeared. A security breach alarm blared through the lab's intercom system, jolting the team from their focused trance. The lab's doors sealed automatically, red lights cast a foreboding hue, and the screens displayed a single ominous message: containment protocol engaged. The team was cut off from the world, isolated with the most significant discovery in human history, and they were not alone. Someone or something had infiltrated the sanctum of human advancement. Ilara's mind raced as she considered the possibilities. Was it a government agency seeking to commandeer their work? A rival organization, or even a non-human entity with its own agenda? Agent Rowan's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. "Dr. Mystery," he said, "you need to understand the gravity of the situation. The breach was not an accident. It's an attack. Your work has just become a matter of global security." The room turned cold with realization. The code that promised so much was also a beacon to those who would use it for less altruistic ends. The team looked to Ilara, awaiting her command. With a steely resolve, she stepped up to the challenge. This was more than scientific curiosity now. It was a fight for the future of the human race. The lab had transformed into a battleground of ideologies, its sterile calmness pierced by the urgency of the attack. As the team members huddled around the main console, the screen flickered with intermittent static. Agent Rowan's face was a mask of concern amidst the chaos. "Listen carefully," he instructed. "The attack is a bid to control the information you've unearthed. There are entities out there who believe humanity is not ready for this leap, who fear the change it represents. Others see it as a chance to ascend to power. Either way, the knowledge you possess is the flame they all want to capture." Ilara, Rajan, and Lena exchanged looks of grim determination. They had become the unexpected custodians of a new world's dawn, a role none had envisioned when they first pledged their lives to science. But here, in the silence of the lab, a decision crystallized within Ilara. They would not let fear, from within or without, quell the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The Sentinels had secured the lab against external threats, but the risk of internal sabotage remained high. Rowan explained that they would have to work quickly to secure the genetic data. "There's a protocol," he said, "a way to encode the information that makes it indecipherable to unauthorized users. But it's risky. You'll need to initiate a genetic lock, a sequence that only you and your team can unlock. With the lab in lockdown, Ilara's team set to work, the intensity of their task amplified by the knowledge of what failure could mean. They initiated the genetic lock, embedding a complex series of keys within the code, keys designed to correspond with their own DNA. It was a poetic safeguard, using their unique genetic signatures to protect the legacy of an ancient alien civilization. Days melded into nights, their efforts a marathon of endurance. As they worked, a camaraderie formed, forged in the fire of shared purpose. They became more than colleagues. They were comrades in arms, united against an unseen enemy who sought to dictate the destiny of humankind. The work was exhausting, both mentally and physically, but the thought of the code falling into the wrong hands was unthinkable. They pushed on, fueled by the possibility of ushering in a new era of enlightenment for humanity. Finally, with trembling hands and weary eyes, Ilara entered the last sequence. A hush fell over the room as they awaited confirmation of the lock. The screen blinked once, twice, and then displayed the words they had fought so hard to see. Genetic lock secured. For a moment there was relief. They had done it. They had protected the knowledge that had been entrusted to them. But this victory was a prelude to the challenges that lay ahead. The world outside was still oblivious to the transformative power now hidden within the lab's walls, and it was only a matter of time before they would have to face the consequences of their discovery. Ilara looked around at her team, their faces lit by the glow of the screens, and felt a surge of pride. Together, they had ensured that the future, whatever it might hold, would be one shaped by the many, not the few. The code was safe for now, but the real work, the shaping of a new destiny, was just beginning. The genetic lock was a temporary reprieve, an intricate digital shield guarding the alien code. Yet the true storm was gathering beyond the lab's reinforced walls. Ilara and her team, now unwitting soldiers in an invisible war over the destiny of human evolution, felt the pressure mounting. As the genetic lock clicked into place, the Sentinels network, a sophisticated global surveillance system, detected increased activity around their location. It was only a matter of time before the attackers would breach the lab's defenses. Agent Rowan's updates grew increasingly grim. Intelligence suggested that a conglomerate of power players, including private corporations and shadowy factions within various governments, was closing in. Their motives were as diverse as their backgrounds. Some wanted to weaponize the code, others aimed to monetize it, and a few feared its potential enough to want it destroyed. The unifying factor among them was the desire to control the future of the human race. The team had to act fast. They couldn't destroy the information. The risk of losing it forever was too great. They had to disseminate it, but in a way that preserved its integrity and ensured it was used for the betterment of all. The decision was made to encrypt the data within a viral carrier, one that could be deployed across the global data network, hidden in plain sight until they were ready to reveal it. With Lena's expertise in synthetic biology, they engineered a harmless viral vector, a digital Trojan horse capable of carrying the encrypted alien code into the world's cyber infrastructure. It would be indistinguishable from the background noise of everyday internet traffic, yet it held the potential to transform the human condition. Rajan took on the task of developing a cognitive trigger, a way to ensure that when the time came, the knowledge would be accessible to those with the wisdom to use it wisely. It was his belief that the best safeguard against abuse was to tie the code's activation to a level of consciousness that sought enlightenment, not power. The plan was audacious, its execution fraught with risk. They worked around the clock, aware that every second brought the opposition closer. The lab became a crucible of hope, a place where the future was being encoded not just in the DNA they sought to protect, but in the very soul of their mission. Then, just as they were about to deploy the viral vector, the lab shuddered under the force of an explosion. The external cameras went dark one by one, the digital eyes that had been their lookout now blind. The attackers had arrived, their patience exhausted. Ilara and her team faced the invaders, not with weapons, but with the resolve to protect the legacy that had been bestowed upon them. As the door to the lab began to buckle under the assault, they launched the vector. With a few keystrokes, the alien code, encapsulated in layers of ciphers and biological safeguards, slipped into the vastness of the digital world. The door gave way, and the lab was breached, But the attackers were too late. The knowledge that could redefine the human race was now beyond anyone's grasp, waiting for the right moment to emerge. As the intruders secured the lab, Ilara and her team were taken into custody, but they shared a glance of quiet triumph. The future was no longer contained by walls or dictated by the ambitions of the powerful. It was free, a secret whispered to the world, ready to ignite a revolution in the hearts and minds of those ready to hear it. As Ilara and her team were escorted from the wreckage of their lab under heavy guard, their spirits, paradoxically, were not dampened. Despite the physical confinement, they had achieved a monumental victory. The alien code, now safely ensconced within the digital ether of the world's networks, was set to eventually unlock a new epoch for humanity. The team was separated and held in a secure facility, a location off the grid, and designed for the containment of individuals deemed too dangerous or valuable to be allowed freedom. Here, each member was isolated, subjected to intense interrogations and psychological evaluations. Their captors wanted to understand not just what had been unleashed, but also how to capture it once more. They believed that controlling the code was akin to holding the future in their hands. Yet despite the pressure, Ilara and her colleagues remained steadfast. The safeguards they had implemented ensured that the code could not be misused by those seeking to exploit it. Weeks turned into months. The world outside remained oblivious to the quiet digital storm brewing in its midst. Rumors of a new discovery that could alter human capabilities were dismissed as conspiracy theories and sci-fi fantasies. Meanwhile, Ilara and her team used their confinement as a time to plan. They understood that the eventual activation of the code would bring about challenges as society struggled with the implications of such profound knowledge. Eventually, through a series of legal maneuvers and international pressure, Ilara and her team were released. The world they returned to was on the cusp of change. The viral vector they had released was beginning to make subtle changes in the background processes of biotech firms, research institutions, and university databases. It was slowly starting to reveal itself, not as a sudden revelation, but as a gradual awakening. Ilara, now seen as a pioneer of a new scientific revolution, took on the role of an ambassador for the new technology. She traveled the world, speaking about the potential of the alien code to usher in an era of unparalleled human advancement. She talked about the ethical implications and the need for a new global dialogue on genetic information and human evolution. Meanwhile, as the encrypted code began to integrate more fully into various systems, the changes it enabled were profound yet balanced. Those who sought the code with wisdom began to experience breakthroughs. Innovations in medicine, energy, environmental management, and cognitive enhancement started to emerge, all hinting at the code's influence. The story of Ilara and her team became a beacon of resilience and vision. They had not only discovered a hidden truth within human DNA, but had also ensured that this knowledge would be a catalyst for positive change. As they watched humanity ascend to new heights, they were reminded of the heavy responsibility they bore, and the ongoing need to guide the world thoughtfully and conscientiously. In the end, the legacy of the alien code was not just about the genetic potentials it unlocked, but about the spirit of unity and ethical stewardship it fostered among the peoples of Earth. Humanity was stepping into a broader universe, not just as children of Earth, but as heirs to a cosmic heritage, ready to meet their future with open eyes and enlightened minds.